So I've had this 1990 Kawasaki EX500 for around a year now, and I've had a lot of fun with it, even more so than the Cruiser that I have. It's very light, nimble, it's fun to drive around the mountains and the local twisties. I would like to take it on some longer trips, but the 500cc's just doesn't hold up well on the highways. And I really would like to have a bigger bike, you know, maybe for a passenger, some luggage. I would like to get into moto camping a little bit, but with this bike it just, well, you know what, actually, well, that was easy. So yeah, anyway, I picked up this 2000 Kawasaki Concours 1000, and hopefully it meets the needs that I was just talking about. It's definitely a bigger engine, bigger bike in general. It's got some storage options and more comfortable seat for a passenger. So let's take a pretty quick tour of the bike and see what it's got and how it's doing. So before we get started, a quick, somewhat of an awareness announcement. This bike almost did not make it home with me. On my way home, I noticed the hitch that the bike was attached to on the motorcycle trailer was bouncing a fair amount. And to make a long story short, basically my bumper almost ripped off the truck. So it's very important to do your safety inspections before and during your transport. I'll show some pictures and maybe even a quick video here of the state that my bumper hitch was in. I should have noticed that. I'm very surprised that I didn't, but maybe it was just being used to having an old crappy truck. So definitely make sure you check things over before you go on a long drive home, especially with a heavy load in the back, and just be safe. So really glad I got it home, but make sure you double check things. Here we are. This is my new to me 2000 Kawasaki Concours. Probably one of the first sport touring motorcycle designs. It's got 33,000 miles and change on the clock, and overall is in pretty great cosmetic condition. I love how the red complements the black. When I originally went to go check out this bike, it was a lot bigger and heavier than I expected, weighing in somewhere around 650 pounds wet. Starting from the rear of the bike, you've got a shaft drive for smooth acceleration, a single disc brake setup, dual mufflers on either side, and an inline 4-cylinder engine at 1000 cc's, making 110 horsepower at 9,500 RPM. Onto the front, we've got two piston calipers for brakes, and a front tire, which is in dire need of replacement. Up and over the bike, you've got a large, comfortable touring seat, a 7.5 gallon tank which should get me plenty far, and a nice display full of handy information. It even has 2 trip meters, a clock, and a fuel gauge, which I have yet to see on any of my bikes so far. In terms of storage, either side has a luggage mount rack for hard cases which came with the bike. Up over the front, you've got a large windscreen and touring fairings to help redirect air around you and make for a much more comfortable riding experience on those longer hauls. Now compare this to my EX500, which only weighs 440 pounds wet and makes 60 horsepower at 9,800 RPM. This will be a pretty big but fun change. Looking forward to the project. So before I can gain access to working on the carbs, I have to take the tank off. And in order to take the tank off, since this thing holds about 7.5 gallons of gas, I'm going to siphon out a lot of the gas here into my gas can using an old little vacuum siphon that I've had for quite some time. I use this on the Honda Nighthawk, and hopefully this just goes pretty easy. It'll save me from trying to lift up 7 gallons of gasoline, maybe make it a little bit safer. So I'll go ahead and give this a shot. The tank looks extremely clean, which is great. So very excited about that. Okay, let's see how much we get out. Might be a while. Okay, so right as I was about to have this tank just be completely full, it just drained. So I'm gonna go ahead and drain the rest of this out into the gas can. In order to get the tank off, you're supposed to take these side panels and the seat off, so I'll go ahead and do that. Okay, those are both off. Now let's go ahead and get prepped and ready to take the tank off. I do not believe the front fairings have to come off, just the, especially when I'm working on the carbs, I think these two side panels as well, so I'll start working on taking them off as well. Okay, there's one panel. Oh my. That has seen better days. Okay, let's get these fuel hoses off, or at least try to. Maybe I can pull this back a little bit. Yeah, okay. Do not lose those rubber things. They gave you so much trouble on the other Kawasaki bike. I wound up searching for those for like 4 hours. Let's get some paper towels. It's supposed to be a vacuum style petcock, so I shouldn't have to worry about fuel pouring out, which is great. So let's give this a shot. Okay, electric connector and whatever that little breather tube is now off. Now I need to work on petcock stuff. Okay, one line off. One to go. All right, gas tank should be disconnected. Whew. It's hot in here. Need it to be winter again. Last time I ever say those words. All right, gas tank is off. Yeah, it looks crusty. Take a few pictures. Pictures will save you more times than I care to admit. I believe there is a screw on one of these sides that allows the air box to move a little bit. So quite literally any extra amount of space that I can get rearward is going to help a lot. What in the world? What is this? I think this is shocks. Yeah, okay. I think that's the air system to change your shock. Yeah. That's a dead spider. This looks fine. Probably blow it out with compressed air just to clean it a little bit. This is my first time working on a 4-barrel carb. So this should be fun. Okay, those are all loose. That one was barely on. Interesting. Some of these aren't even tight. It's a little scary. And this boot doesn't even look like it's on, really. Well, those are all loose. Think we can get lucky? Nope, probably not. Okay, that's loose. All right, and just like that, we have some carburetors. Now this was not easy to do. I never want to do this ever again, so long as I live, but it does look like they're a little gummed up and stuff, so it was probably the right decision. So let's get this over on the bench. Okay, now I'm gonna work on the carbs for a little bit. I'm going to do them one at a time and not disassemble the entire unit. Everything looks okay, fuel lines look fine, nothing looks cracked or torn. So in order to make it so that I don't lose track of where I am and what parts go where, I'm just gonna go one at a time. And I'm probably gonna do this off camera only because this does get extremely messy and it also gets a lot of grease and gasoline on my hands, and I don't wanna be messing around with the camera during that. So I'll see you guys in a little bit. Okay, got this one all figured out. It was a little gunked up inside, it wasn't terribly bad. I need to set my mixture screw, but I did set my float level correctly. Everything cleaned up really nicely. So now I'm gonna go ahead and re-put the case back on. There we go. And that's 2 carbs done. And carburetor number 3. All right, and here is carb number 4. Oh, there you go. 1 carb rebuilt, nice and happy, looking good, nice and clean. Some of the idle jets were a little clogged. All of the pilot screws were completely out of whack. I had to reset them all to 1 3/4 turn out from touchdown. So hopefully do it once, do it right, don't have to come back and do it again, and it should work nice and easy. Unlike some other unnamed projects that probably didn't go wrong the first 3 times. All right, and now that I've got the carbs ready to go, I've got the boots back and installed. I'm gonna heat them up with a heat gun before I install them and spray some spray over them. I need to hook up the linkage cables minus the choke cable and then slide this in from the left side. So I know this is gonna be a ton of fun, so I guess I'll just get right to it. Okay, that actually wasn't terrible. I somehow was able to get the linkage cables on without causing too much grief. So let me heat up these boots and then I'll start getting ready to put this in. All right, carbs are back in. That wasn't honestly that terrible. Unfortunately, my SD card kind of filled up halfway through that, so you might not get to see everything. But the boots are all on. I need to move the airbox forward, connect up all my lines, and then just move on to the next thing. And eventually, hopefully soon, I'll be able to test this and make sure everything's working well. So let's keep going. All right, now we're gonna go ahead and get ready for an oil change. Ow. Ow. Jesus. It actually looks really clean, so that's a bummer, but oh well. So I'm also pretty low on coolant in the reservoir. I don't actually think there is any. So I'm gonna go ahead and drain the coolant. I also noticed that I have a, it's not the right size. That's right. I have a leak on one of these radiator hoses. So I'm going to drain this, tighten up the hoses. If there's anything in here, holy crap. There we go, okay. That's actually very green, that looks good. But that doesn't seem like nearly enough. Please don't tell me that's all the coolant that's in there. Hold on, let me open up the top radiator cap. Oh, everything is so messy. There we go, okay. Let's hope we get a little bit more coolant out of that. Well, that wasn't half bad. Ugh. Okay. Put this back in. I don't think that's enough coolant. Like I said, this lower reservoir is completely empty, so I need to see how much is supposed to go in, but something tells me that was not enough coolant. Then I need to tighten up some hoses over here. And we are good to go. At least on the coolant side, oil is still dripping out, and I gotta go find a filter. So I took the coolant tank off. It looks really, really bad. It smells even worse. So it had just barely some coolant in there, really not all that much. I'm gonna go ahead and get this cleaned up. You're supposed to be able to see some coolant levels here, but clearly you can't, so let's go take care of that. And boom, done. I now can actually see the upper and lower level indicator. There was some crap that was inside of it, but overall, much better. Let's go ahead and get this back on the bike. Who does this? What engineer thought this was a good idea? Ugh. Stupid light. Okay, let's add some coolant. All right, now I'm gonna add some coolant. This is gonna be fun, but it says add it until you get to the base of the filler neck and then to fill it up in the bottom reservoir after closing all your drain plugs, of which I have, thankfully. And this just takes straight 50-50 antifreeze. So let's go ahead and fill this up. Don't know how I'm gonna do this. Well, that worked well. Let me get a better angle here. I think I might actually have a flexible funnel. What would I have done with that? Probably not have it handy, but I'll just fill this container back up a little bit. Oh, I never even opened this. Oh, I must be full now. Yes, I believe we are finally full. I'll let that bleed a little bit, literally. So it looks like we're full now. I was using like half of a full one of these so that I wouldn't spill all over the place. You can see how well that worked. But anyway, it says to fill until this is just full, and it is. So next what you have to do is fill the bottom reservoir. So I'm going to let and see if any air burps out of here, and then go ahead and fill the bottom reservoir. This is also probably not going to go well, but whatever, we'll give it a shot. Idiot. Well, I blame not being able to see into the tank. All right, that's pretty close. All right, so I've got my new filter. It's a little hard to find these. This one is a Fram 6012. It's not listed on AutoZone's website for some strange reason. Well, that's the wrong size socket. But I'm gonna go ahead and install this in. I just need to be a little careful with the one O-ring. It doesn't want to seat very well on the case, so go ahead and get this started. Okay, now I have to see if that O-ring is really tight. Trying to get that through there, so I need to draw that up in with a socket wrench. Hold on, I need to go find the right size. Wherever my 17 millimeter went. Okay. There we go. O-ring went through. That's good. And then that gets tightened down to 14 foot-pounds, and that feels about right. That looks good. Okay, no more dripping. Now we can go ahead and add some oil. Oh my. Oh my. All right, and now we're going to add some oil. This is supposed to take about 3 quarts when you do a drain and a filter change. So I'm gonna add 2 quarts pretty quickly, and then go ahead and add the last quart a little bit slower. I'm just using standard cheap 4-stroke 10W40 motorcycle oil. I'll probably add a little bit nicer oil after I've put some miles on it. And here comes 2 quarts. Actually looks like it's full, which is a little weird and concerning. We'll give that a minute to settle. So reading up on it, I actually need to run the bike after changing the filter so that it can flow through those passages. So I will probably add the last quart after I turn the engine on for the first time, which should hopefully be soon. So let's check a couple more things first and we'll get back to it. All right, I think I've got everything hooked up. I've got my tank bushings back on. I added some tape underneath so that they don't fall off so easy. Let's give this a shot. Let's get the tank back on here and let's see if it'll fire up. My handy dandy belt conditioner bottle. I hate these clips. I hate these clips so much. Oh, finally. I hate those with a burning passion. Oh, man. Let's connect up the fuel sender and this other breather hose thing. Okay, that's it. Okay, let me go read some priming instructions. I forgot I need to clean the air box. The filter looks good. I'll probably replace it at some point, but for right now it looks okay. So I'm just gonna use some Windex, clean it out. It's a little grimy in there, but it could be worse. It could look like the other bike's air filter. That thing looked like Swiss cheese. But this one isn't that bad. All right, so idiot check. We've got tank is set back up, carburetors are good. We've got coolant, we've got engine oil. I think everything is hooked back up. So let's go ahead and put this into the prime position. Turn this on. We are in neutral. Let's give it some choke. Let's see if it fires up. Never any doubt in my mind. This thing sounds beautiful. I'm going to shut it off. So while I'm waiting for tomorrow to run the bike more, I noticed a couple of the bleeder screws on the bike, this one's from the water pump, are terribly clogged. Like, I opened the main front caliper completely and it was just completely clogged. And so I took this one out of the water pump and was able to put like a vacuum plug in order for me to check and see if I could clean it out. And it did clean up, so I'm going to reinstall it. But for the others, I'm going to have to get creative because I don't want to let a bunch of brake fluid leak out. So let me see what I can figure out. I did pick up some Dorman bleeder screws. They're 13905s. That part number doesn't mean anything, but they are the same thread pattern, which is metric 7x1. And they're just 34 millimeters in length versus, I believe, the standard ones are about 30, 31. So I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but if I don't have to use them, great. Otherwise, I'll just replace them. The front master cylinder, although the fluid I think looks somewhat decent, it smells absolutely awful. So I'm probably just going to open up one of the front bleeder screws and then just pump it over and over again and change out the brake fluid. And I'm going to do the same thing to the back. So I figure I might as well show you what I'm working on. This bleeder screw doesn't work at all until I get completely out, so no fluid drains out of this. So I'm going to try and see if I can take this out and maybe shove this plug in like I did on the other one. If I can't, I'll put this back in and I'll open up that other pack because I don't think I have anything else that fits this size hole. Yeah, it's completely clogged up. Well, it's not pretty, but it works. Let's clean this out. So unfortunately I didn't have the camera going when it happened, but I thought that this was a speed bleeder, which means you're supposed to be able to uncork it like half a turn or something, press on the brakes, and then it bleeds. Well, when I did that, almost like a pimple popping, I had a brake fluid just burst out of here. I quick wiped it down because brake fluid isn't good for paint and stuff like that. It can kind of melt it all off. So I looked again and you can barely see through this. I don't think that that's necessarily good if this was a speed loader, and I don't think it was because the other one opens up right when you turn it. So I'm going to replace this with one of the ones that I got because I think this one's a little bit too far gone. And like I said, the new ones are just a little bit longer. I think otherwise it'll be fine. Okay. Yep, that works. So I do not think that that's a problem to use. Clean this up a little bit. And honestly, I may just replace the other one while I'm at it, because why not? Main reason I wanted to do this was because I wanted to drain out the brake fluid because it smells god-awful. And I think it could definitely use with some new fluid. I gotta double check and make sure the reservoir isn't too low because I do not want to have to bleed these. I just want to drain it, and no, that looks okay. Great. So this one I can completely see through. You can see the light coming down through there. The other one I could not. So I'm going to reuse this one. That way if I need that plug for the rear master cylinder, I can use it. So I'm just going to clean this up a little bit, put it back in, use it, and it lives another day. So I had this line on here because I was going to drain this out into a jug, and then I realized the problem that I was running into where not all of them were behaving the same. So don't really know what I'm gonna do here, but I definitely wanna make sure that I don't get it on the exhaust, because super flammable, nasty stuff. Got my plug again. Let's see where I get. Okay, that wasn't that bad. This brake fluid's actually pretty clean, so might be okay. Let's give it a little clean, see how it looks. All right, this one also turned out okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and just clean it up a little bit and reuse it. All right, so I already flushed the rear brakes. I'm gonna go ahead and do the front ones. I wanted to show you guys just to see the color before and after, why I wanted to flush it. The color just really isn't that nice. It's like a brown color. It's supposed to be more of a clear. When I did the back, started off brown, finished clear. That looks great to me. I'm just hooking up a hose to the bleeder screw, pump the brakes. We'll take you along for the ride. So I'll go ahead and get started. All right, and then when you're done, it should look a lot prettier and a lot clearer. All right, and let's do the second one. All right, and that's how clear it should come out. So that's pretty much it for the brake flushing. Yeah, so your brakes really shouldn't look like iced tea. Really glad that I wound up flushing this. Also, I don't remember if you recall, but this used to be a disgusting color, and it's actually nice and clean now. So again, really glad that I worked on that. And as you can see, the clutch reservoir is quite disgusting. I actually thought that what I thought was the water pump bleed is actually the clutch bleed. So I did that completely wrong. I was wondering why it was coming out brown, whereas the coolant was very bright green before. Should have probably realized that, but anyway, the coolant bleed valve is back there. I don't think you'll be able to see it, but we'll go ahead and get the clutch master cylinder bled. That way it'll be nice, new, clean fluid. This takes .4 brake fluid for the clutch, so I don't have a ton left. I need to be careful of how much I use. Okay, that fluid is flushed, and also checked it for air. Everything looks good. All right, so it's the next day. I flushed the brake lines last night. I think everyone saw that. But now we're gonna go ahead and let this get up to temp for a little bit. That way I can check on the oil level, which is still at the high side. And then I can also check on coolant again after it's flowed through. So it says to run for about 3 to 5 minutes. So we'll go ahead and see how it runs. Also, I will see if I can set the idle speed, which is supposed to be around 1200 RPM. So let's see if it fires up. Perfect.
Good throttle response too. No leaks so far. Carbs look good. Some of the smoke that I'm seeing down here is just the coolant that I missed. Okay, we're fully off choke. We may need to come up and idle just a little bit. That looks good. So I guess it was set pretty well before. Need to see if the temperature gauge moves at all. Looks like it is a little bit, which is good. Fuel gauge definitely says low, so don't know how accurate that is. Apparently a lot of people complain about that. We'll let it get up to operating temp. I wonder what temperature the fan is supposed to kick on. We're at operating temp, so that's okay. Well, that definitely works. Okay, that's up to temp, so let's let all the coolants settle down and we'll take a look at our levels. I think it's time to turn some attention to some of those body panels, get them cleaned up a little bit, make this start looking a little bit pretty. All right, I got everything buttoned up in terms of things that I need the trim off of, so let's go ahead and get this back on. This side's done, let's go do the other. And this side, there we go. Well, I think, okay then, I think it's time we're ready for a test drive. So some of the more astute members who are watching this video probably noticed I didn't change the final drive gear oil. And the reason for that, I forgot. But also, you're supposed to drive it around for a little bit in order to get the loose sediment up and moving around so that when you drain it, that stuff comes out. So I'm gonna couple that in with my test drive that I'm doing and then drain that out. Afterwards, I will probably work on getting ready to take off the front and rear tires so that I can go have them swapped out. I just got some new tires in the other day. And then eventually when my brake pads come in, I can go ahead and swap them off too. So let's get ready for a little test drive. That was easy. We'll go ahead and let this warm up, and then I'll go ahead and take it up and down the street a couple times. All right, now it's time for a little test drive. Turns pretty well. The old tires definitely need to be replaced. They've got some flat spots on it that make it not so great to maneuver at slower speeds, but overall not bad. Clutch feels great, brakes feel great. So I don't know if you heard any of that, but everything feels fine. Throttle response is very good now. I don't notice anything that's loose or shaky. The tires definitely need to get replaced just because of those couple flat spots that I talked about. But I'm gonna run it up and down a couple more times so that I can get that final gear oil moved around so that I can drain it out. All right, and now that I've driven it around for a while, I'm gonna go ahead and check the fluid level in the rear drive just because I'm curious. It's supposed to come up to just underneath the fill level bolt surface. I did crack it open just a second ago, or at least crack the seal that it had from just sitting there for so long, and it was awfully tight. So something tells me this may not look great. Not sure how easy that will be to see, but it comes up pretty much right to the level of the bolt. It's a little dark in color, it smells kind of funky, so we'll go ahead and drain it and swap it out. That's purple. Well, I can safely say that's not supposed to be purple, I don't think. But anyway, we'll go ahead and let that drain, and we'll take a look at what I've got left. All right, now I've just got some 80-90 gear oil meant for hypoid gears. I'm gonna go ahead and put in. There we go. You want to do it just till it's pouring out of the top of the fill plug. So I'm going to go ahead and just swap this out and reinstall. And it is actually required for you to make a lot of mess. So just in case, if you didn't drip it all over the place, you didn't do it right. All right, so I've backed the bike in here because now I've got my tires and my brakes. I'm gonna go ahead and pop the rear wheel off. I was doing a fair amount of research. I probably called maybe 10 or 15 different places to see the cost of just mounting and balancing the tires, not necessarily purchasing the tires. And the absolute cheapest that I could find was about $200 to $225 for both tires, which, coming from my perspective on mounting car tires being about $15 to $20 a tire, you know, I understand that there are a lot more places that do car tires, but I figure motorcycle tires might be, you know, $30, $40, even $50 a tire. But to get quotes for well over $100 a tire seems really excessive, so I bought some tools to be able to do it myself. I know I'm going to regret this, but I'll at least give it a shot. So what I'm going to do is work on getting the rear caliper off. I may have to move some of the exhaust pieces. The manual isn't really clear on how to do this, and there's a lot of different opinions on how to do this online. So I'm just going to document it as I go, and we'll figure out what works best. Okay, so regardless of who you ask, pretty sure that you need to take the rear caliper off anyway, so I'm gonna go ahead and uninstall this, then move it out of the way. And then I have no idea how you're supposed to get the rear shaft out without moving the mufflers, so I'm gonna have to look into that in a little bit. Let's go ahead and loosen up the caliper. Oh my God. Okay, yeah, so reading the manual, it actually says it wants you to remove this bracket piece, I assume so that the entire caliper can come with it, and then somehow remove the axle. It would go out towards the left, but the mufflers are both in the way. I don't know how someone didn't look at this and realize that. But anyway, what I'm going to attempt to do is just loosen the muffler a little bit. I've already got the caliper off, and then I may need another jack to come in here to raise this up a little bit more. I'm not really comfortable doing the 2x4 trick by putting the center stand under a 2x4. And then hopefully I'll have enough clearance that this tire can pop off to the right and then just swing out this direction. So let's see if we've got enough room for that. Well, that sucked a lot. Let me tell you a couple things to do and a couple things not to do. So when taking the rear wheel out, definitely do not bother doing anything with the exhaust. Remove this upper control arm bolt that you see here. Remove on the lower end of the shock this bolt right here, which allows the whole swing arm to sink down, which then gives you access to the axle. Once you've pulled the axle out, you will need to remove the final drive. Like I said, I didn't want to lift up the center stand on a 2x4. Otherwise, your rear tire can't get out through the back, which I'll show you an example of in this clip. What kind of engineer designs a tire that cannot come out the rear without taking half of it apart? This is so dumb. Then once you've got the axle out, you can push the tire to the side, remove the final drive with 4 14mm bolts, and then this thing just slides out. So as long as you hate your life, you'll have no issues with this whatsoever. All right, and now comes the part that I'm definitely going to hate, which is going to be removing this tire from the rim. I bought some special tools for it, so I'll give it a go and see how it goes. Well, that was easy. right. That wasn't bad at all. Now to seat the bead. Okay, I think that was it. Okay, so now what needs to get done is I need to check the tire for the proper balance, and all I've really done is I've got the axle in a vise at pretty much level. I have some plastic protectors around it so that I don't hurt it, and I'm just going to put the tire on, give it a couple spins, and see what the balance looks like. Now, I'm not expecting it to be very different from what it was, seeing as they usually balance rims and not necessarily the tires. So I've still got my heavy point lined up pretty close with my valve stem, so I'm just going to give this a light spin. Okay, so I've checked it a couple times and it looks like right here is going to be my lightest spot, so I want to go ahead and take a weight and just barely attach it to the inside there, and then give it another spin. And basically what you want to do is you want to take this heaviest spot, put it to 9 or 3 o'clock, and then when you let go, it should either very, very slowly go one direction or very, very slowly go the other. But as you can see, this pretty clearly comes down to this low spot here, so I am going to add just a little bit of weight there. Okay, so I didn't fully seat it because I don't want to, in case I have to move it or add more or less. So I've got a 7-gram weight here. I'm just going to do the same thing. Put that to about the 3 or 9 o'clock position and then let go. You can see it's definitely rotating a little bit slower, so I'm just going to speed this up, add another 7-gram weight, and see how it looks. Okay, let's try this again. I'd say that looks pretty good. So again, this was roughly where the heavy spot was, so if I go to putting it at around 9 o'clock, and if I let go, it is ever so slightly rotating. And the video guide that I was following says you generally want to be a little on the light side, if anything, so I'll go ahead and mount these up inside, and this wheel is all done. I will go ahead and also add some grease here to the spline mesh as well as on the final drive. When I have the final drive all reinstalled, I'll probably have to check the gear oil level again, but I'm going to go ahead and get this all ready for reinstall. Alright, so I got the new brake pads installed. That wound up being significantly more work than I thought it was going to be. I'll show some pictures here, but long story short, the piston wouldn't compress enough to get the brake pads in, so then I had to take the caliper off so I could pop the piston out with compressed air, clean everything off, put it all back together. Everything there wound up going okay, but it was just a lot of extra work that I wasn't expecting. I thought it was going to literally be pop out pads, pop new pads back in, but I'm glad I did it. Everything, it didn't look pretty when I was working on it, so like I said, it was probably a blessing in disguise, but I'm going to go ahead and get the final drive and the wheel all lubricated up with some grease, which is over here, and let's go ahead and get this rear tire back in. All right, I've got the final gear, or final drive all lubed up. It's time to get this tire back in. I went the wrong way. Let's get this over to the side. Now I need to get the final drive back in. This will be undoubtedly fun. Okay, those 4 bolts are on, that's good. I need 14, I think it is. Okay. Ugh. Finally. Jesus. Okay. All right, so that is one rear tire completely swapped out. The brakes replaced, the caliper slightly rebuilt. I am going to have to rebleed that master cylinder again, so I'll probably do that off camera, but a lot of work. Don't know if I'd do it again. Hopefully, if anyone else is doing this for a Concours, they heed my warning and just take plenty of time, and especially about how to get this tire out without needing to put it up on 2x4s or anything like that. So anyway, I'm gonna get this bike out of the garage, turn it around, and then start working on the front tire. So let's get started on that. All right, so this is a bit of a head scratcher on how to do, but in order to get the front tire of the motorcycle up off the ground, since when you use the center stand, it lifts the rear tire, not the front, I had to come up with the genius idea of using my garage door handle and some ratchet straps to pull the rear of the bike down. I don't think it's going anywhere. Feels pretty safe. I've also locked the garage door and unplugged it so that I don't mess up, because I can definitely see myself doing that, but at least now I've got the front tire off the ground. Okay, so I believe the front left caliper and then the speedo cable need to come out. So I need to find what happened to my 12mm and my little extension. I love being not organized. And I need to take these guys off. I do not know why this caliper needs to come off, but such is life. Probably going to rebuild these as well. Okay, that's out. Of course I'm not wearing gloves. So before I can get the front axle out so I can do the front tire, I had to wait for a socket to come in. I just didn't happen to have that one, and I couldn't make one. Yep, just stripped it again. Dang. While I was waiting for that to show up, as you can see, I took the calipers off. Now, I'll show some pictures here and I'll save you a lot of the story, but these calipers were in very, very bad shape. The pistons would not move at all. They were covered in this really, really bad gunk-looking substance. So I just took it off, plugged up the brake line, cleaned the crap out of them, popped the pistons out, reconditioned those, put new seals in, and just rebuilt it all back together. I don't know how this thing stopped to begin with, because I couldn't get those pistons to move basically at all. I checked the rotors and the rotors seemed to be okay. So just gonna resurface those, or at least clean them up a little bit to get some of this old brake gunk off that's on there. And then I should be good to go. So now that my socket is in, I'm gonna go ahead and start getting ready to take that front axle out so we can work on the tire. I'm going to loosen this while the tire is on the ground, and then I will raise it back up off the ground. So let's give this a shot. Oh man, that's tight. This should just undo. Oh my God. Talk about easy compared to the frickin' talk about easy compared to the rear tire. Jeez. Okay, maybe not. Maybe yes. Okay, easy. Good. Awesome. Let's get these rotors off of here, and then I'll start working on getting the new tire on. So after doing literally a crap ton of work, like an unbelievable amount of work, the front tire is finally back on. Thankfully I did it in the right direction. Now I can go ahead and balance it and get it back on the bike. Okay, that's that. Let's get the brakes on. Okay, there's the front end done. All right, finally on the ground. Let's go up and down the street. Oh, so much better. So much better. So much better. This thing feels so much better when riding around. The new tires feel fantastic. So I think I'm gonna throw the plates on, go fill up with some gas, and just take it for a spin. Well, I just got back from my maiden voyage on the bike. I can safely say that everything that I've done so far has only improved the rideability and the performance of the bike. I was extremely surprised at how nimble this bike is, especially when going at slower speeds, but overall, really have nothing to complain about. There's a couple things that I did notice. The throttle is a little bit loose. I need to deal with the buffeting of the air coming over the top, and I do hear some sort of noise up front, but that is definitely for another video. I think I've pretty much gone over my time limit here with this one. I'm going to wrap things up now and just hopefully take it for some longer cruises and really get some enjoyment out of it. I hope you guys did enjoy this video. I put a lot of effort and time into it. And if you wouldn't mind maybe leaving a thumbs up or hitting that subscribe button, it really does help the channel grow. I'm trying to keep the momentum going, as well as it does just give me some boosts of serotonin. But anyway, stay for some bloopers, and I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you in the next one. And that's 2 done. Jeez, come on, snap. And that's 2 done. Come on. And carburetor number 3. God, what is with my fucking snapping? All right, now it's time to add some oil. It's supposed to take, hold on, I'm a wimp. Oh, never mind. We will be back. Like I said, it starts off brown. I'm just hooked up a hose into a can, open up the bleeder screw. Fuck. A little bit wet there, but anyway, I figured I'd take a look at the clutch reservoir, and as you can see, that is, what the fuck was that? Fuck. Finally. Ah, tits.